All right, good evening. Welcome to the Falls Township Board of Supervisors meeting, Monday, July 20th. We'll begin with the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Mrs. Pullen, can you pull the board?
I guess I'll pull the board then.
Go ahead.
Brian Galloway.
Here.
John Palmer. I believe John Palmer's on vacation. Jeff Dentz.
Here.
Jeff Paraski.
Here.
Jeff Rocco's here. That's me.
All right, thank you. We had a little bit of a rocky start with some technical difficulties. We did have an executive session. Do you want to comment on that now, Mr. Clark?
Certainly, Mr. Dentz. The board held an executive session prior to this meeting to discuss matters of personnel and potential litigation.
All right, thank you. First item on our agenda is public comment. Kyle, do we have anyone for public comment?
Yes, we have Tony. We'll move her in right now.
All right. First item on our agenda is public comment. Kyle, do we have anyone for public comment?
Yes, we have Tony. We'll move her in right now.
All right.
Hey, Tony, if you can hear us, if you could turn down. Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Okay, hi, Tony.
Hello, good evening.
Kyle, do we have anyone for public comment?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Right now.
Hey, Tony, I think, can you mute your, whatever you're listening to it on?
If you could turn down. Yeah. Okay.
Turn down which?
Okay, hi, Tony.
Hi. Hello, good evening.
No, we're getting some feedback. If you can mute your computer.
Hey, Tony, whatever you're listening to in the background, we need to mute that because you're live right now.
Okay. Sorry. I was trying to watch the YouTube that finally started. This is Tony Batiste, and I wanted to know, I understand that the judge has postponed something because we were supposed to hear about the status of Elcon tonight.
Yeah, there's a hearing. We don't have an actual date for the hearing yet. The lawyers and engineers are actually on call, and there could be less than 24 hours notice, the judge told them, in regards to, they want to hear more testimony from both engineers on both sides regarding the fill. So that's still
Okay.
pending. We don't have any time or date.
And is there any word from the DEP as far as all the filings that they made to the DEP?
No, we haven't heard of any.
Okay. And one other thing is the roadworks was supposed to fix the curb in front of the Fallsington Church, the United Methodist Church.
Yes.
And to date that happened, and I was wondering if you have any idea when it is going to happen.
It's on the schedule for this year's road program. We don't have, everything's been pushed back, so we don't have an exact date. I'm sure everyone will be given plenty of notice when they're ready to get started over there, though.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's all I have.
All right, have a good night. Anyone else for public comment, Kyle?
No more public comment.
All right, great. Item number 2, certificate of appropriateness, 72 Main Street, for the painting of the exterior of the house. This is pretty straightforward. It's been approved by the Harbor Committee. Is there any questions from board members?
No question.
No questions.
Mr. Rocco?
No questions.
Kyle, is there any public comment needed?
No public comment.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the Harbor application for 72 Main Street for the painting of the exterior of the home?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Item number 3. Consider the 2020-2021 diesel and unleaded fuel bids for Falls Township. Mr. Takita, can you take us through this?
Yes, the board is being asked to consider awarding the consortium bid for fuel to PAPCO Incorporated for the unleaded fuel and Riggins Incorporated for the ultra-low sulfur diesel. Jason Lawson, the Director of Public Works, is here tonight and available if the board has any questions.
This is something we do every year. We're part of the consortium with all the other townships. We get the best price we can get. Are there any questions for Mr. Lawson from board members? Mr. Boraski? No. Mr. Rocco?
No.
Mr. Galloway said no already. Is there any public comment needed?
No comment.
All right. Now, Mr. Clark, how are we doing this? Just approving this?
You can accept the consortium bid as presented, unless you don't want to accept the entire thing and you want to break some of it out, but you can accept it as presented.
All right. Is there a motion to accept this as presented?
I make that motion.
All right. Motion made and seconded. Mr. Rocco, can you pull the board?
Mr. Galloway,
Yes.
Mr. Boraski. Mr. Boraski. We can't hear you.
About now.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. You're looking for a vote. It mooted the whole thing.
No, we're looking for,
We're voting.
We're voting, yeah.
Yeah, I was a yes.
Mr. Dents,
Yes.
I'm a yes.
All right. Item number 4, ratification of declaration of emergency as approved by the Board of Supervisors dated June 19th. So just to extend the ones that we already had. I guess there's no questions from board members. Is there a motion to approve this?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Rocco, or all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. All right. Item number 5 is a resolution authorizing an application for a grant for the Greenways, Trails, and Recreation Program from the Commonwealth Financing Authority. This is designating the township manager as the official to facilitate the grant application and execute all documents. This is for the basketball rink or court down in the hockey rink. I'm sorry.
Hockey rink.
Township Park. Something that we were going to budget and spend the money on, but we found a grant for that. Is that right, Mr. Takita?
Yes. Yeah, we were able to find a grant for this. The grant is for $138,988.60. Our contribution or match is $24,527. The total estimated cost of the project is $163,516.
It's a pretty good deal since we were going to just buy the whole thing. Is this something that came along from our grant writer that we have now?
Yes, it is.
That's who did find this. All right. Is there a motion to author or any questions for Mr. Andrews or Mr. Lawson or Mr. Takita from board members?
Well, do we have a date on when this could be happening, or?
Well, actually, we got to go out to bid on the surface work. It's a 2-part project. The surface work, basically, that's a whole redo. That whole fence has to come down. Surface has to be redone with adequate grading for better drainage. Joe Jones can talk better with that. The surface would get done first, and then we will call in the company that supplies the dasher boards, and the Public Works Department would install them with the supervisor from that company.
Okay. So, Brian, would it happen this year?
Right now, speaking to the dasher board company, I know they get busy later in the summer, early in the fall. They do a lot of indoor rinks. They do a lot of colleges, a lot of rinks in the Midwest and everything. So that'd be something I have to coordinate. My hope at least get the surface done this year, since we got backed up so much. Things got kind of put on hold with everything going on. But we can go out for that bid on the surface and get that done and see where we are.
Are they going to reimburse us the grant, or it's going to come through that quick? Those things are usually pretty slow.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that timeline.
Okay. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Well,
Mr. Boraski, any questions?
No, I have none, thanks.
Mr. Galloway?
No, it's a good deal. No questions.
All right, is there a motion to authorize Matt to execute the grant as presented?
I make that motion.
Second?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
You were also authorizing condition of the application?
Yes,
Thank you.
as presented, yes. All right, item number 6 was scratched from the agenda. Item number 7 is a consideration of agreement with Carfax. Mr. Skeeta, do you want to explain what this is about?
This is an enrollment form for law enforcement to participate in Carfax. Lieutenant Whitney is available to discuss the specifics. He worked closely with Lauren on this enrollment form.
All right, Lieutenant Whitney, you want to take us through this then?
Yes, Carfax gives us several capabilities. It allows our residents and citizens who are involved in traffic crashes to get their police report online, which is not something we currently are able to provide for citizens. It also allows them to pay online with a credit card. And currently we don't have that capability. So, for the last 70 years, we've had people come to the lobby to get a copy of their crash report. This will automate that and kind of bring us into 2020. It also provides our police department with some very useful investigative search capabilities, in that we'll have access to the Carfax database, which can be used in criminal investigations.
All right, and is there a cost to us for this?
There's no cost to us for this, no.
Oh, so this is just streamlining everything. All right, any other questions? Any questions for Mr. Lieutenant Whitney, Mr. Rocco,
No, I'm good. Thanks.
Mr. Boraski,
No questions.
Mr. Galloway?
No questions.
All right, is there a motion to enter into the Carfax agreement for the Falls Township Police Department?
I make that motion.
Second?
All right, motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Mr. Dents,
Yes, sir.
if you want, I can tee up this next agenda item.
Sure. Go ahead, Mr. Rocco, take us through number 8.
Cool. Yeah, I met with Lieutenant Whitney about maybe 3 weeks ago in reference to some of our policies and procedures as they relate to excessive use and force, how do we ensure that that's not happening? Also, any research we do to ensure that none of our police officers are racial profiling anyway, and also training. So I sat down with Lieutenant Whitney. We spent about an hour together. And at that point, I felt like we do so much that it should be made public to our citizens. So I've asked Lieutenant Whitney to come here tonight and kind of walk us through some of the things that we're doing to ensure that our officers are trained and all the other good stuff. So thanks for being here. I know you have a presentation as well.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity. So I'll share my screen. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. So, obviously there's a national conversation going on about criminal justice reform in the police. So I thought I would share some ideas how that relates to our police department. And to kind of put a sharp point on it, what are we trying to avoid? Well, we're trying to avoid people being mistreated based on their race or ethnicity, and avoid that involving arrests, use of force incidents, and clearly we're trying to avoid injuries and death of persons during contacts with the police. So the areas to consider regarding these things, there's 4 big areas to consider, and that is training, our department policies, the equipment that's available to our officers, and the culture of our organization. So as far as training is concerned, I kind of parenthetically reference where some of this training has been in recent years. MIST stands for Mandatory In-Service Training, which we report to the Bucks County Police Training Center in Doylestown to get that training. And some of the training is provided by the township, and in some instances, it's been both. We've had training in cultural diversity, in sexual harassment here in the township, an excited delirium in both mandatory and service training. And here during a first aid CPR recert, we had a trauma surgeon and a paramedic come in, and as well as, recerting our officers in advanced first aid and CPR, we discussed this issue. Excited delirium is a big concern for law enforcement. It's more likely with methamphetamine, bath salts, synthetic marijuana, and PCP. And, the key point there for us is for the last several years, there's been a rise in methamphetamine use in the township. It is nationwide, but it's certainly in Falls Township. It is supplanting heroin as the common street drug use of choice. And methamphetamine is a dangerous drug that is a stimulant rather than a depressant. So when people are on methamphetamine, they tend to want to fight. So you can anticipate use of force incidents going up. And when we have this excited delirium, basically people who get involved in this condition will resist and fight until their body overheats and they die. So it leads to in-custody deaths. And it's extremely important that we recognize the signs of excited delirium and get immediate medical intervention. So that's an instance where if we had a prisoner who appeared to be engaged and suffering from excited delirium, we'd get a medic unit to respond to wherever we were to begin medical care for that person. So it's extremely important for police officers to know about that.
Lieutenant Whitney?
Yes.
How do you calm them down, or what do they do medically to get them out of that state?
They sedate them.
Oh, they just sedate them.
They actually chemically sedate them and try to cool them down and monitor them. So they need advanced medical care. It's nothing that we would be able to handle in the field. And it's scary because it leads to these in custody deaths.
Wow. Okay.
And we also had specifically training on avoiding in custody deaths and injuries. We do defensive tactics now as frequently as we do firearms training. We used to years ago do it once a year. Now we do it 3 times a year. Of course, the pandemic has kind of limited that, but it's important that officers be comfortable with the de-escalation techniques that we have and comfortable with their use of force techniques that we have. When we do defensive tactics training, officers who aren't comfortable, who aren't trained frequently in that, may resort to using higher levels of force. And when you watch some of these incidents that have occurred nationwide, you see that. You say to yourself as an experienced officer, why did that officer even have their gun out? Officers need to be confident using lower levels of force so they don't prematurely escalate a situation and get involved in a deadly force situation that was not warranted. We've had training in procedural justice for 2 years at mandatory and service training. That's basically a strategy in law enforcement that emphasizes allowing people to express their point of view, giving people a voice, maintaining neutrality as a police officer, having respect and treating people with dignity, and being trustworthy in the exercise of our duties for the community. So that's a nationwide, you'll hear that term procedural justice. That's a big movement nationwide. In Falls, we've had an EMT program for the last 32 years. My goal is to have 2 EMT trained officers on every squad. We're almost there. We do have some more officers we need to train. Some of my newer officers have expressed an interest in that. So that'll be training that'll be coming up. And really, when it comes to training is something we have to continually reinforce in the police department. We need highly trained officers. Highly trained officers do a great job. You can't just train an officer once in an important concept and then kind of check the box and think you're done. Training has to be continually, annually reinforced. So training is an extremely important part of running a police department. When it comes to policies, we have a policy about bias-based policing. And annually, we conduct a review of all the arrests that we make, and we examine the ethnicity of those persons we're arresting and compare that to our demographics in the township. The GIS technology that the township is bringing on board will automate this and increase our capabilities in doing this. But currently, we do this once a year, typically in August. And in the staff meetings that we conduct that are shared with the entire department, we look at this data. So this slide, it needs to be updated for this year. It's from August of last year, but it looks at our arrests and the ethnicity of those arrests. And they match up quite nicely with our demographics. If you look at the census data, there's some statistical variation. And I was actually working with a professor at Bucks County Community College to have a more rigorous analysis of it, which I'll continue when I can get access back to that person. But we do look at this every year. Now, if that was inverted, we're 82.4% Caucasian, according to the census. That's the estimate for July of 2020. If that was inverted and we were arresting, 79% of people of a different ethnicity, we'd have to look at that. Why would that be happening? You do see that in some areas, and you really need to rigorously examine that and determine, do you have a bias-based policing issue, or is this accounted for by some other issue, like, bordering a major city that has a different demographic? But for us, that matches up very well. So as we often say, we have no indication of bias-based policing in the Falls Township Police Department. And one of the things you'll see in this nationwide discussion about use of force and criminal justice system reform is a desire to ban neck restraints. We haven't had neck restraints in our use of force policy for decades. My entire career here, we have never permitted neck restraints. So that's not anything that our officers are trained to do here or permitted to do by policy. We also need to look at equipment. So we have restraint belts and leg restraints in every patrol car and in the cell block. And the advantage of having that is there are times it's very uncomfortable, very difficult for people to be handcuffed behind their back, depending on their stature and their health. That could be very difficult for people. So if we're going to have people in custody for longer than the ride back to headquarters, we can put them in restraint belts, which allows us to handcuff them up front, which is safer for them. It's more comfortable, and it allows us to position people in a way that allows them to be more comfortable and not aggravate the stress of being arrested, because it is stressful, by having someone handcuffed behind their back for a long period of time. We also have a restraint chair in the cell block. So if we do have somebody who's extremely resistant and is actively resisting, we have the ability to safely contain them in a chair where they can't harm themselves or harm anybody else. When that happens, they're constantly monitored with an officer there with them, and it's used for short periods of time. But we do have that equipment available. We also have a great many less lethal options available to our officers. Everybody is issued and trained in pepper spray. All the officers in the patrol division have a taser issued to them that they're trained in. Everybody's got a baton. And in our supervisor vehicles, we have beanbag guns, which are 12-gauge shotguns that have orange stocks. You don't mistake it for the regular shotgun that's loaded with double-aught buck that can shoot a beanbag projectile at somebody. So that equipment is available to all of our people. And the culture of the department is extremely important to consider. And in our department, we have had a culture my entire career where if we can de-escalate, officers frequently do. There's a high value here placed on human life. And the example I normally cite is, when you see our officers respond to a person who's in cardiac arrest or a person who's suffering from a drug overdose, you'll see multiple officers respond to save that person's life. It's a tremendous example, I think, of just valuing people. As soon as naloxone became available for police departments to use in Pennsylvania, we jumped on board. And, just like officers can be competitive in many different ways in a positive way, you'll see them competitively run to these overdoses to try to save these people. And they work very hard to do so. So, it's a really good example, I think, of just in general, you can look at our police department and see that there's a high value placed on human life. Our officers are also inclined to go hands-on before using deadly force. So what I mean by that is, in a situation where deadly force would be legally justified, again and again, you'll see examples of our officers electing to use a lower level of force and placing themselves at risk in doing so, rather than shooting somebody. A couple of recent examples that you may remember. Last year, we did an award ceremony, and one of the awards was for 2 sergeants who were face-to-face with a guy who had just done a drive-by shooting and had a loaded weapon in his hand. And when the guy stood up and moved towards a family member, instead of staying behind cover and shooting this person because he was walking right towards somebody with a loaded gun, they tackled him. They absolutely placed themselves at risk and safely got this person into custody without injuring him and without using a higher level of force. Another example was 2 of our officers, a sergeant and one of our newer officers, responded to a call where a child had called and said her sister was being murdered. And the officers forced the door of the residence open, just like a TV program, where literally in the bedroom walked in on a person on top of his girlfriend, repeatedly stabbing her And instead of shooting the guy, they both tackled him and saved the woman's life, but also saved the life of this perpetrator that would have absolutely been a justified shooting. So I really love that about our department, that our officers value human life so much so that even if the person's doing something really wrong and really dangerous, they don't resort to higher levels of force just because they can. And we're also fortunate that our supervision teams out there, there's a sergeant and 2 corporals on every squad. They're very engaged in operations. So when there's an arrest, when there's a critical incident, when somebody's being typically taken into custody, like a disorderly person's offense, you'll have officers respond, but you'll also see supervisors respond to that. So if they're needed, they're there. And just a word about the criminal justice system. The criminal justice system is really a group of interdependent systems that all need to work well, both individually and collectively, for there to be justice. It's not just the police department. It is the police department, but it's also the district attorney's office, probation and parole for both adults and juveniles, our mental health professionals, people who help with the homeless population, and people and organizations who help with drug and alcohol addiction. It's also all of you, our local elected officials, our school district, our local businesses. We're really fortunate in Falls Township that all of these institutions are in place and they all really work well together. You know, we've got Lenape Valley's mobile crisis that goes out and sends social workers to the homes of people who appear to be struggling with mental illness. We've got substance abuse treatment providers that do the same thing, that when we have a person who's struggling with substance abuse and they sign off on our form, we outsource that to a treatment provider that can connect them with treatment to try to help them. Our school district works fantastic with us. Our local businesses are extremely supportive for us and work really well with us. Our district attorney's office, we have a tremendous relationship with them. And there's parts of the country where that just isn't true. So although there are places in the country and some of these calls for reform are looking to put these kind of things in place where they're either underfunded or don't exist, we're fortunate that we have all of these systems in place in Falls Township, and that obviously that contributes to the success that we have in providing police service to the community and the feeling of on the part of the citizens that they're safe. And that's
excellent job, Lieutenant. And I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I appreciate the opportunity. It was a great question and it was a great opportunity. Thank you.
Yep. Maybe we can put that on the website somehow. I'd imagine we could. It's a presentation.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah. All right. Any questions, follow-up questions for Lieutenant Whitney at this time, Mr. Boraski?
No questions at this time. Thank you, Lieutenant.
Mr. Rocco?
Thank you.
No, he's answered them also. Appreciate it.
Galloway?
No questions. It was very educational. Thank you, Lieutenant.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 9, we have the minutes from June 15th.
Yeah,
What's that?
I was going to suggest that Lieutenant give us the update, but that's okay. The police update. We'll be back.
Yeah, minutes from June 15th. Any questions or corrections? Comments? From anyone? Excellent minutes, Mrs. Pullen, as always. Mr. Rocco, anything? Nothing?
No, nothing from me.
Boraski?
Well, thank you.
Mr. Galloway?
None.
All right. Is there a motion to accept the minutes from June 15th?
So moved.
I'll second that.
All right. All in favor? Aye.
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 To the engineer's report, Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you will see, this month's engineer's report shows that there were 4 new earth disturbances submitted and 1 floodplain permit application submitted. 2 of them were residential pools. The other 2 earth disturbances were for waste management. One of them is a previous project that was approved in 2017 that is now just come into construction. It's the Biles Creek Wetlands Mitigation Project. The other one is a compressor building at a facility that exists down by the deep port. The floodplain permit is associated with that since it's adjacent to the floodplain. In terms of the development projects, as usual, the updates are identified in red. There are a couple of notable points that I'll make.
In terms of the land developments, MLH Explorations, that's the minor building addition that gets that operation started. That received a final UNO last month. So they're operational, and we continue to work with them on the bigger project, which is the greenhouse. Airgas is a project down in the KIPC that has recently submitted an amended final plan application. That will be before the board shortly. Minor adjustments to their site plan. They removed one of the buildings, a maintenance building, and they adjusted the loop road slightly. The result is less impervious surface and probably a better design. The other projects, 14 through 19, MM Metals, Petrucci, the KA at Fairless Hills, Alrose Steel, Stalwart, and Marquise Construction are all in various stages of the development process. MM Metals went before the boards and received approval. The others will be before the board shortly. In terms of the earth disturbance applications, all of the applications at the end of the list in red are all reviewed and approved. A number of residential pools, a stockpile at the Sylvie site on Old 13, and then the two that recently came in for waste management. I will say that the Dollar General is a previous land development project that came through as an earth disturbance due to malfunctioning stormwater management basins. Happy to report that the basins were remediated and they are operating and functioning as designed. We could tell because they were pumping water into them and it was infiltrating as designed, but we're going to continue to monitor that project over the next 6 months before they're completely off the hook with the township. In terms of the ongoing township projects, the 2019 road program recently completed is in its punch list stage, and we're working with the contractor to fix some of the dead sod that some of the residents paid for. Not to worry, it's not the right time to replant. We're going to continue to monitor water and redo that in the fall. In terms of the 2020 road program, what we're about to construct, some inlets and storm pipe have been delivered to the site. I know trees were removed, so that project's going to get underway in full force very soon. We're going to actually have our pre-construction meeting when I get back from vacation next week, and we'll talk about, we'll have a lot of good answers on when things are going to stage out. In terms of the 2021 to 2023 road program, we've made good progress on a lot of upfront work that we do. The pavement cores have been completed and submitted to us. We're evaluating them. We set an order of roads for design and reconstruction over the next 3 years, starting with Elderberry, then to Pinewood, and then to Willow Drive. And my staff continues to work on the CAD environment and the bid set formation. That's my report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jones. Any questions on the engineer's report from Mr. Jones from board members? Mr. Rocco?
Just an interesting observation. There's actually 5 pools going in, which is a heck of a lot. Mr. Jones, number 25 of earth disturbance.
Yes, sir.
The Terry Residence Pool. It says, the one thing I just was curious about, we await final grass growth, at which time the project will be completed. So without, can you help me understand why grass is needed before the permit is considered done?
Yes, Mr. Rocco. We typically leave the projects on the list until we're done with all of our inspections. And so that you may see that one on a list for another month. They'll call us when they're finished with the pool construction, and the pool construction usually includes land disturbance. And so we get a call when it's all done. We go out, we check it, and we're looking for the grading to be appropriate and to have a good grass stand. And once the grass is restored, and whether it's sodded or whether it's seeded, then we'll do our final sign off, and that project will come off the list. So as I wrote the report, that residence didn't have enough grass for us to say that we're completely done. They would normally operate under a TCO, a temporary certificate of occupancy, on the improvement until it's fully complete.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions from Mr. Boraski?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Galloway?
No questions.
I have no questions. All right, thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones is actually on vacation and he had to take a break. So enjoy the rest of your vacation, Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, have a good night. All right, so is there a motion to accept the engineer's report?
I make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that takes us to item number 11, the bill list. The big bill list this month, $2,447,000, $868,000, over $868,000 in payroll. We have $176,000 for a piece of equipment for Public Works, which is something we budgeted for. $100,000 in playground equipment. Some very large insurance payments for our policies. Are there any questions or comments on the bill list? Mr. Rocco?
None.
Mr. Boraski?
No questions.
Mr. Galloway?
No question.
All right. Is there a motion to pay the bill list?
I make that motion.
Second.
Mr. Rocco, can you poll the board?
Mr. Galloway,
Yes.
Mr. Boraski,
Yes.
Mr. Dents,
Yes.
I'm a yes.
Item number 12 was the executive session, and Mr. Clark already commented on that. That takes us up to the police department report. Mr. Chief Wilcox did send me this. I'll read this tonight from Chief Wilcox. As required, office staff have returned on July 6th and have transitioned back with no problems. We remain in the green phase following the guidelines set in place by Governor Wolf's administration and policies and procedures in the township. Thankfully, everyone has remained healthy. We still receive continued support from our residents and local businesses. We received several donations of equipment, food, and coffee over the last few months, and we appreciate all the support and generosity. There have been multiple parking complaints on Woolston Drive and Makefield Road near the Commons in Falsington. We're aware of the concerns and working on a solution that will appease the residents and motorists. He wants to remind our residents to take note of the non-emergency number for dispatch has changed. We'll put the new number on social media as well as the website tomorrow so people can get it. The county phone systems have been updated, so the previous number may not work any longer. He also reminds everyone to follow on social media, including the Crime Watch page, where you can report non-emergencies. They also, with the help of local businesses and residents, there's actually a registry. If you have a security camera at your house or a Ring type doorbell or any kind of doorbell, if you were willing to register that just helps the police during investigations if they're looking for someone that was in your area. I know some people might not like to do that, but it's very, very helpful. It saves a lot of time for them as well. And that's the police report.
If we could just note that they don't, filling out that form doesn't give the police access to your cameras. It just, in case there's crime, they'll knock on your door and say, can you check this? Yeah.
Correct. Got it. All right. Any questions or comments on the bills? Well, it doesn't matter because Mr. Chief Wilcox isn't here. So I guess, is there a motion to accept the police report as presented?
So moved.
All right.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Item 14, manager comment.
I have a few items. First item is a request to authorize advertisement for an ordinance to amend the provisions of the RD1 zoning district as part of the Stalwart project. Lauren and Mike Clark are available for any discussion on this matter.
All right, Ms. Gallagher, you want to explain to us what that is?
Sure. This is a draft of a text amendment that was prepared by the applicant for the 2300 Pennsylvania Avenue project, also known as Stalwart. What this would do is add a permitted use into the district of warehousing. And it also has several dimensional provisions that would be amended for such a use. It would allow the warehousing use in the RD1 district. It would have to be on a lot that was at least 50 acres. And it would contain at least 500,000 square feet of leasable building area. And I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Yeah. Any questions from board members? Mr. Rocco?
But this is for the entire RD.
This is for the entire RD1 district, yes.
Yeah.
This is just authorization to advertise. The applicant will actually be present at the next board meeting to discuss the specifics of the ordinance.
Okay.
Mr. Boraski,
No, I have nothing. Thanks.
Mr. Galloway?
No questions.
I have no questions. And what kind of action do we have to take on this? We're voting to approve this?
This is just authorization to advertise.
All right, is there a motion to approve the authorization to advertise?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
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 Another item we have is Monsignor McCormack is requesting the consideration of the board to waive the permit fees for a new LED sign at St. Francis Cabrini Church. Cost of the permits would be $254.50.
All right, I don't see, does anybody have a problem with that?
No.
I think so.
No.
Is there a motion to waive the permit fees then?
I make the motion to waive the permit fees.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The town, if you may recall, the township approved the application for the annual spring bare root tree offer at its January 20th, 2020 board meeting. But due to the COVID-19 epidemic, the order was canceled and rescheduled for the fall. The township has done similar bare root tree programs in prior years, planting them throughout the township. Over 560 trees have been purchased through the Tree Vitalize program by Falls Township. The board is being asked to consider the purchase of 12 trees for this year's program as part of the Tree Vitalize program. That's a total of $600.
All right, do we have any idea where they'd be planted? I guess no.
Not at this time.
Any other questions for Mr. Takita on the bare root tree program? Mr. Rocco?
I have none.
No.
No.
No questions. All right, and it's for $600?
Correct.
Is there a motion to approve the purchase of the bare root trees, 12 trees?
I make that motion.
Second.
Mr. Rocco, can you pull the board?
Mr. Galloway,
Yes.
Mr. Boraski,
Yes.
Mr. Dents,
Yes.
and I'm a yes.
Thank you. Last thing we have is new business opened up during the month of June. Micro Trap Corporations at 225 Lincoln Highway, Suite 215. It just opened in June.
That's it? All right.
That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Takita. That takes us to item 15, board comment. Mr. Boraski,
Comment. Thank you.
Mr. Rocco,
I have no comment. Thank you.
Mr. Galloway.
No comment.
All right. As everybody can see, we're still doing these virtual meetings, and it's still a little awkward for me. We still stumble a little bit. We had a rough start to this one. It doesn't look like next month's going to be any different unless things change really fast. Before the end of the year, we'll be back to meeting in the meeting room. I do want to let everyone know that we've had ongoing discussions with Waste Management regarding delays in picking up trash and problems with picking up trash, and they've been very receptive to working with us. They're going to be updating Mr. Takita in real time, the route supervisors, of delays, of broken down trucks, any kind of problem at all. So you can look on, I don't know how we can actually update in real time on the website. I imagine we could try, but if you use Facebook or I guess we have a Twitter account, we can update in real time on social media. So we actually already started. You can actually see if there's delays and so forth. There's a phone number that you can call if you're having a problem, and the route driver can get in touch with Mr. Takita and update him as well. We'll put that info. It's been on social media already, but we'll put that on the township website as well this week. As I said during the police report, the non-emergency number has changed. The new number is 215-328-8519. We'll put that on the website and on social media as well, so people are aware. The old number probably doesn't work. And the other one that I was mentioning was the security camera registration. And Mr. Rocket made a good point. You're not giving anyone access. It's just a database, so they know, if there was an incident on this street, these people may have a camera. They may be able to just call you up and, see if they, rather than go door to door looking for people with cameras, which is very helpful in them solving problems in the neighborhoods. That's about all I have for tonight. Everybody, it's getting really hot again, so stay cool. The county does have cooling stations set up. I don't think we have one in Falls Township right now. But if you'll find the information on the fire marshal's website or his Facebook page. He's also, before I forget, Mr. Rich DiPolito started a food drive, which has been hugely successful. He's been getting a lot of donations that has been given to a lot of the local food banks, at least 3 or 4 of them. So if anybody has a food contribution that they're willing to make, or any type of, say the food drive, you can find that information out as well. You can call him. You don't have to do anything. They'll come and get it from you if you want them to, or you can drop it off. But that's all I have for tonight. Thank you, everyone, for a smooth meeting. And with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I don't have the gavel, so there you go. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.